Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Um, it's a great day to discuss other people's excellence. I am the unforgettable one, Mr. Brett Carroll, and I just a guy that likes BSing at work. Speaking of BS, speaking of discussing other people's excellence, it gives me no pleasure to do this podcast. It gives me no pleasure to say this. As a diehard Steeler fan, and as a diehard Mike Tomlin fan. We need to have a serious discussion about whether or not it is time to move on. So let's do it. Okay, the Steelers under Mike Tomlin have now lost six straight playoff games. None of them have been close, by the way, and haven't won a playoff game in 9 years. Everyone in Steelers Nation is beyond frustrated, from players to coaches to upper management, and especially the fans. And the questions about Mike Tomlin's future will be strong this offseason. Tomlin's tenure and what the right move would be is more complicated than just simply moving on. So let's discuss some of this. Before I even get there, um, I've been a Mike Tomlin defender for most of his career. He's not perfect, nobody is. Um, and I'll get to some of the things that I still kind of defend in a little bit, but I think the biggest thing lately, because I'll talk this about some of the other stuff, but lately, especially this year, especially the last 2 weeks, I will say this. The Tomlinisms, as we call them, they don't work no more, bro. When you make certain decisions that don't make any sense, and fans are asking about those decisions, and the media is asking about those decisions, when you've lost five straight games to end the year, when you were 10-3, when you haven't won a playoff game in 9 years, when you've lost six straight playoff games, the Tomlinisms are getting old. When we're asking you questions about what's going on in the game and why you're struggling and why you're making certain decisions, and you're giving us quotes and riddles and poetry, it's frustrating because as a fan, I understand I'm just a man on my couch watching. I can't coach in the NFL, right? We would go 0-17 if I coached. Fine. I'm not even good at Madden, okay? Let's just put that out there. But the whole point of those media sessions is for you, the expert, to give us insight as to what is going on, why are you making certain decisions, what's not working, why is it not working, what adjustments can be made or should be made. That's the whole point. So when you give us the Tomlinisms and you speak in riddles and word salad as they say it, and you get frustrated because the media is asking you basically the same question five different ways. It's like, dude, because they're trying to get you to just answer the question. It was very apparent in the Bengals game. They asked him basically the same questions about the offense, and he was getting frustrated because he kept answering it the same way. And it's like, Mike, you're kind of answering the question that we have, which is what the hell is going on with the offense? And the way you're answering the question, you're talking in circles basically, and you're basically getting at their point. So for those that didn't see it, they were basically asking, why are you guys running the ball so much, especially when it's not being effective? Why is the offense not clicking? Why are you not scoring points? What adjustments need to be made? And he basically just kept saying the same thing over and over and over and over again, which is, well, we were in advantageous situations and things of that nature. And we didn't execute and we didn't do this and we didn't do that, da 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 da. And again, he was getting up frustrated because they kept asking the same question basically in five different ways. And it's like, but Mike, that's the point. We're trying to figure out what the hell is the strategy here. Because you basically answered the first part, which is what's wrong, by repeating what we're saying. You're running the ball every time, so you're predictable. Because you're predictable, you're not running the ball well. Because you're not running the ball well, you're in third and long. And as you keep admitting, this offense isn't made to be in third and long situations. And so it's hard for y'all to move the ball when you're in third and long every time, which is why they're asking you, why the hell are you running the ball so much on first and second down? And you're not answering the question. You keep talking in circles. And you're basically getting to the original question, which is, yeah, Mike, we understand that you're running the ball every time and it's predictable. And so you're not getting what the yardage that you want on first and second down, which means you're in third and long. And as you keep admitting, this offense is not built to be in third and long. So again, the question is, why do you keep running the ball so much on first and second down? And why aren't you making any adjustments? And he never answered the question. He kept saying, well, again, well, again, well, again, we're in third and long, and that's just not advantageous, and da 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 da. And it's like, dude, we understand that. Let's ask this question again a fifth different way so maybe you get it. Why are you running the ball so much on first and second down when it's not effective and it's putting you guys in bad situations? Why are you not making the adjustment? And again, he just refused to answer the question. And so that's frustrating because as a fan, that's what we want to know. In this game, not this game, the Buffalo game, this game is in the Ravens game. You have TJ Watt crashing down on the running back. And I get it. Their thing was we need to stop the run game and make them one dimensional and pick your poison. But by picking the running back every time, Lamar Jackson just kept pulling it. And he was running all over us. And then we still didn't stop the run game. Derrick Henry had 183 yards and two touchdowns. So we still didn't stop the run game. And it made no sense to me because the reason why we've been so effective against the Ravens is because our strategy has been simple. On those zone reads, hit Lamar Jackson. Hit him. Because you know what that does? That makes them stop doing the zone read because nobody wants their quarterback to get hit that much. Mind you, Lamar Jackson got hurt early in the game. He got kneed in the back, and so his ribs and back were sore the whole game. So you could have had free hits on Lamar. I'm not saying hurt him. What I'm saying is, if you get free hits on Lamar, that's going to force the Ravens to stop the zone read. That takes a major play out of their playbook. And instead, you were purposely just all out going for the running back, and Lamar Jackson just kept pulling it, kept pulling it, kept pulling it, and he was killing us with that zone read. He ran the ball five straight times. He specifically ran the ball five straight times one drive. And then I think the next drive they ran it all 13 plays for a touchdown. So we didn't stop the run game at all. And it's like, dude, why didn't you make that adjustment? And he never answered that question. He never answered the question. It made no sense. If you're gonna pick one, you always pick Lamar because even though they want to run the ball first and they have Derrick Henry, this team, just like every other team, is a quarterback driven team. If you limit what the quarterback does, you can stop the offense. So to me, that made no sense. But again, he didn't really answer the question. And so the biggest issue I have with him right now is, and I'll get into some of the other ones that if you've been watching this channel a lot, you know what some of my other issues are. But the biggest thing for me right now is the Tomlinism's got to stop, bro. Take more accountability in terms of answering questions and telling us what the hell is the thought process behind some of the decisions you make. Mike Williams, you traded for Mike Williams, we barely use him. When you do use him, he's effective. He'll make a great play, and then again, you don't see him anymore. Even Najee. Najee gets a lot of hate, but I've noticed it's really weird how they use Najee. He'll run the ball well, and then they'll just stop using him. And it makes no fucking sense. It makes no fucking sense. It's almost as if they use him the same way they use Justin to protect themselves financially. I swear to you, Najee had like three straight games of 100 yards and he was looking good. And I swear we like barely used him the rest of the season. And it made no sense to me. And Najee gets a lot of hate, and some of that I get. He still doesn't read the hole that well. He's obviously not that fast. So some of the bigger plays that he could make, he doesn't make because he's just not fast enough. But Najee runs hard, man. Najee never misses a game. Najee plays tough. And it's weird. There's certain games where like he's doing well, and then we just stop using him. And I never understood that. And they're like, oh, well, Jalen Warren has the hot hand. No, he doesn't. We're not running the ball well at all, period. You're just using Jalen Warren more for reasons, and it doesn't make sense. It's almost like you don't want him to play. You don't want Najee to play well because you're trying to bring him back on a cheaper price. And it's like, bro, if that's what you're worried about, that's why this team can't win. The goal is to win right now. We figure out the off-season stuff in the off-season. Like what are we doing? So you're telling me once you bring him back on a cheaper deal, then you're gonna run him into the ground? I don't know. Again, there's just certain decisions that are being made here. As a fan, I feel like we deserve more answers because this isn't fair. What you're doing is obviously not working, and the Tomlinisms are getting old. They're cute when you're winning. When you're losing, it's really frustrating. It's like, bro, tell us what the hell's going on because we don't know. That's why we're asking you. That's literally what the media is for, to give insight into what's going on. And if you're not going to give us that insight, you can't get mad that we're even more frustrated with you that we're losing these games and we don't have answers as to why. So, yeah. So here you go. If the Steelers decide to move on from Tomlin, they will most likely trade him away than fire him, which is the right move. Tomlin should give them much needed draft compensation, and I'm sure a few teams will be very interested in obtaining his services. Coach Tomlin does have a no trade clause, so you won't be able to just give him to the highest bidder. It would have to be a team that he wants to go to, which can make things complicated. He could screw you, right? He could say, look, I'm only going to go to this one team. And if that one team knows that, then they could just give you whatever they feel is good compensation. They don't have to bid against anybody else and get you what you want for him. Um, if he has a handful of teams, even if it's just two or three, at least you can have a bidding war between those two or three teams. Um, but yeah, if he just says, "Well, I'm only going to go to one team and one team only," then that team could say, "Here, take this and take it or leave it." And then it's either keep him because it's not good enough compensation, or you give him away for less than what he's probably worth. So yeah, again, so even that is not as simple as it should be. Realistic options, there's only two options to me that make sense, the Jets and the Bears. I know the Raiders also kind of make sense. I just don't see him wanting to go to the Raiders. Again, I'm keeping in mind his no trade clause. Unless he's saying it's Vegas, Brady's there, so I kind of trust what's going on with the upper management. Again, it's Vegas, so we can probably get free agents and things of that nature. And I'm using that verbiage on purpose 'cause I'm trying to think of how Mike Tomlin might think of it. Um, but realistically, that roster is not that good right now. And realistically, especially if they have to give draft picks up to get him, I don't see him wanting to go there. Um, the Jets would make sense if they keep Rodgers and Adams because I'm sure he wants to compete and having a Hall of Fame quarterback who we know he has a good relationship with or he's fond of, and having a good wide receiver is apparent. And then the Bears obviously because Caleb Williams and the weapons available, and both teams do have good defenses. He's a defensive minded coach. He's gonna be you know entitled to one. He's gonna want a team with a good defense. With that being said, the Steelers shouldn't make any trades unless they get at least two first picks minimum. They need that first round pick in the 2026 draft class. And this is important because this year's draft class does not have a franchise QB that their Steelers are looking for. Hopefully next year's class will. And so they're going to need multiple picks in order to move up and get that quarterback, whoever that quarterback is. With or without Mike Tomlin, I expect us to have 8, 9, 10 wins next year, meaning we're not going to be a bottom five team in the league. Meaning, in order to trade up, you're going to have to give up significant draft capital to trade up and get the guy you want, which means you're going to need a that second first round pick in the 2026 draft class. Not this year's pick doesn't really matter, but obviously you're going to get a first round pick in this year's draft class. The next year pick is more important. Even if Tomlin goes there and has a winning season with the Jets or the Bears, it's fine, right? So even if you're picking, let's say 20 and 22nd, that's not ideal, but still, you're still giving up two first round picks to move up. It's going to cost you way more than just those two first round picks. But those two first round picks will help significantly if and when you need to trade up for a quarterback. So to me, if you're going to trade them, the asking price has to start at two first round picks because that's the bare minimum of what you're going to need. Best case scenario, this is more of a fantasy, but if teams really, really, really want Tomlin, you can get two first, which has to be the starting point. But you could get more. And here's what I'm thinking of again, Jets and Bears. Two first and a star receiver. Garrett Wilson for the Jets and DJ Moore for the Bears for Mike Tomlin. There's been rumors that Garrett Wilson might want out. DJ Moore seemed to have been frustrated this year. He might want out. Um, so if you could, and the Steelers need a receiver. So if you can kill two birds with one stone by getting those draft picks and getting another receiver to go alongside George Pickens, then great. That's awesome. You can, I do that deal in a heartbeat, right? But that's a lot. So realistically, if you're gonna get a receiver and two first, it'll probably be two first, a second, and a star receiver from Mike Tomlin, George Pickens, and a third. So really, it's a pick swap, right? You're giving up a third to get an extra second, um, and you're getting your two first and a star receiver, but you're also sending your receiver back in George Pickens. George Pickens is a guy that they're gonna have to make a decision on. They don't necessarily have to do it this offseason, although he is available for an extension this offseason. Um, But obviously, he's going to be somebody they're going to have to make a decision on in the near future. If they're not this off season, the next off season. If you're tired of his antics and if you want to just start over on the offensive side of the ball, again, you could add him in a trade here. Now, to me, you definitely do not add George Pickens in any Mike Tomlin trade unless you are getting a receiver back. We made that mistake last year of just getting rid of Deontay Johnson with no replacement, right? I would want a star receiver to go alongside with George Pickens, but if they just want a clean slate from George Pickens altogether, then that means you have to get a receiver back in this trade. Again, either Garrett Wilson or DJ Moore. So you trade Mike Tomlin, you trade George Pickens, you trade another pick. You got to throw in a pick in there, and you can get two firsts and a second with a receiver. Um, because that way in this draft class, I think the Jets and the Bears have the ninth and 10th pick respectively. Um, hopefully a Tedero McMillan is still there at not nine or 10, whichever team you trade him to, and then you can draft Tedero McMillan with that pick. And so now your new receiving core is Garrett Wilson or T-Mac or DJ Moore and T-Mac. Cool, but at least you have your two top receivers going into next year. And that's if you trade George Pickens. Obviously, if you don't trade George Pickens and you get Garrett Wilson or DJ Moore, you don't have to take T-Mac. You can draft somebody else with that ninth or 10th pick, probably a defensive interior player, unless one of the top corners fall, a Will Johnson or a Ben Morrison or whatever. Um, Either way, that's great for you. if you can do that in this year's draft class. But yeah, those that's the trade that I would do if you're not getting anything like that. I don't know. Now, is it all his fault, right? Should we even be discussing trading him? I will admit, Tomlin has done some head scratching moves with the roster, his coaching staff, and game time decisions. The biggest issue I personally have with him is his team always falls for the Tomlin trap games. I see. Again, if you've seen this channel enough, you've heard me talk about this. Every year we lose at least two games that we have no business losing. This year we lost three. We lost to the Colts. We were 10-3, right? And all three of those losses were bad losses. The Colts, the Cowboys, the Browns. And the reason why that's a problem is when you know you're a team that's not ready to compete for a Super Bowl, and you know you're a team that's overachieving just to make the playoffs, and you know you're a team that the fans just want to see a playoff win. They're not even being unrealistic and hoping for a Super Bowl. They're just hoping to stop the playoff win drought. You can't afford to lose those games. Again, let's just take this year, right? Colts, Cowboys, Browns. Even if we lose those four games to end the season, the regular season, even if that still happens, if you would have won even two of those three games, Colts, Cowboys, Browns, you win the AFC North, you're the three seed, and you're most likely playing the Chargers at home with a quarterback in Justin Herbert, who, although is talented, struggles in the playoffs. And he's playing in a freezing cold Pittsburgh temperature instead of a nice controlled environment in LA. Probably could win that. Even if you win only one of those games. And again, that's if you win two or all three of those games that I talked about, Colts, Cowboys, Browns. Even if you only won one of those games, you would have been the fifth seed and you would have went into Houston. And yes, I know Houston won, but again, they played a Justin Herbert who's not playing well in the playoffs. And that was a tight game until Justin Herbert started throwing picks in the second half. That's a game I still believe we could have won. That's a game I still think I would have liked our chances to again just win that game and end the playoff drought. So that's my biggest thing, right? Those Tomlin trap games kill us every year because it always screws up our seeding and we don't put ourselves in the best position to at least get a favorable matchup in the first round where we could have won some of these playoff games. But that's the regular season. With that being said, I still give him a slight oh, that's supposed to say pass, my bad. A slight pass for the playoff drought. Allow me to explain. We haven't had a quarterback in the last 5 or 6 years, right? Ben was hurt the last 2 years of his career. Then we had, well, technically the last 3 years of his career, right? He was out with the elbow. And then when he came back those last 2 years, we know he was a shell of himself. And then we had 2 years of Kenny Pickett. And now this year we're Russell Wilson slash Justin Fields. So we haven't really had a quarterback in the last 5 years. It's really hard to, it's really hard to win a playoff game when you have the worst QB of the two teams playing. And then the last two playoff losses with Ben, I put that more on Ben than Tomlin. Ben had a combined 7 turnovers in those two games. I put that on my veteran Hall of Fame quarterback than I put on Tomlin. He didn't play that well against the Jaguars. He didn't play that well against, he played horrible against Cleveland, right? The Jaguars, he had a turnover and a fumble. And I understand the defense gave up mad points to Blake Bortles. I get that. I totally get that. Um, But again, Ben also had his patented, took some bad sacks, had some bad turnovers, things that took points off the board for us, put the defense in a bad position. So again, I kind of put that on Ben. I don't put that on Mike Tomlin. Um, and then again, Cleveland game, he had like 5 turnovers in that game alone. So again, is that on my coach or is that on my Hall of Fame quarterback? Um, and then, like I said, the last couple years, we haven't had a quarterback. So it's hard to win when you are the underdog every single time. It's not like we're playing cupcake teams. We lost to Kansas City. We lost to Buffalo. We lost to the Ravens. You know what I mean? Um, those are the last three playoff losses. Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore. And in the last three, the last, so again, it's been six playoff games. So that's the last three. The three before that, Browns, Jaguars, and Denver. Again, two of those I put on Ben, not playing well. And then the Denver game, Ben was hurt and we didn't have AB. So those are the last six playoff losses. I don't know if I put that on Mike Tomlin per se. Again, the trap games don't help because you could have had better matchups, right? So that's I definitely put on him. Put yourself in a better position in the regular season so that you don't have to face those teams in the playoffs. Um, but in the actual playoff games themselves, I can't really put too much on him. Again, this Ravens game was weird because again, we some weird decisions in terms of crashing down on the running backs, not putting a better spy game on Lamar Jackson, making them one dimensional, at least taking away the zone read. That is kind of coaching. I don't understand the lack of adjustments in that one. Um, and I also feel like the defense, just in general, just had no energy this game. I think they were just over it. Losing four straight going into the playoffs and playing your division rival who you know is better than you might do that. Sure. You know what I mean? Sure, I get that, but yeah, I just feel like the defense kind of let us down in a lot of ways. Not Cam. Shout out to Cam Hayward, bro. You are a Pittsburgh legend, and I swear I hope we win a Super Bowl for you, bro. I really do. Just give us some time. I know you don't have much time left, but I mean, shit, the way he played this year, he could play another 3 years, dude. He's awesome. He's awesome. He's phenomenal. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer in my book. Um, but yeah, like this game was weird because again, it was a combination of the Ravens just being better, but also we kind of did some things that were just head scratching. So sure, but again, the actual playoff games, I don't necessarily put that on Tomlin. I put it more on the regular season for not putting yourself in position to a better position so you don't have to face those teams in the first round. But in the games themselves, I don't necessarily put that on him. Uh, so again, is it the right decision to move on from him? As someone on Twitter said, and I wish I would have screenshotted so I could credit them, but they said we could hire any coach to not win a playoff game in 8 years, and that's absolutely true. Like I said, put me in if you don't want to, give me an 8-year contract. I guarantee you we won't win a playoff game if that's the standard. But is it possible that the grass isn't greener or gold in this case if we get rid of Tomlin? I do think we're a little bit spoiled here. I get the notion that there's a handful of teams, there's a small handful of teams where just making the playoffs doesn't matter. It's about Super Bowls. And I get it. The Steelers are at the top of that list. Totally understand that. But again, the playoff drought is annoying, but how many teams can go this long without a losing season, especially without a quarterback? I look at the Broncos, right? Their last playoff win was the same year, 2015. Again, they beat us and then went on to win to the Super Bowl, right? They're just now making the playoffs for the first time since then. They've been horrible since that Super Bowl, right? Horrible. So they're just now making the playoffs for the first time since then. Okay. And yes, that also means they have just as many playoff wins as we do in that time. Got it. But they're just now making the playoffs. Here's the more important thing, which is their future. They have their franchise quarterback in Bo Nix. They have their coach in Sean Payton. They'll probably get another year or two of just making the playoffs, and that's fine. But after that, it's going to be Super Bowl or bust. What if that doesn't happen? Again, I like Bo Nix. I like Sean Payton. I like that Broncos team. They're not better than the Chiefs. They're not better than Buffalo. They're not better than Baltimore. Um, they're not even the only team with a young quarterback in the AFC. CJ Stroud and the Texans are somebody that they're going to be competing with. Justin Herbert in LA, and I understand Justin Herbert just had another playoff stinker, but God forbid he ever gets his act together. Drake May looks good in New England. They just got Mike Vrabel. We'll see what happens with them shortly. My point is the AFC is loaded. Oh, I don't think they're better than the Bengals especially when the Bengals got their defense together. My point is the AFC is loaded with either young veterans because again, I think Pat Mahomes is just turning 30 or something like that. So he has another 5 years left of being great. Josh Allen's still young. Lamar Jackson's only 28. Joe Burrow's still young. So for the most of Bo Nix's prime, they'll still be in the way. And then again, even once they're out of the way, you still have the CJ Strouds of the world. You'll still have the Drake Mays of the world. Who knows what happens next year in this great quote unquote, we'll see. We'll see if it's still great 2 years, years from now. But this great 2026 class that's coming up, who knows where they go? If half of them go to the AFC teams. My point is that fate better, right? Do you want to be bad, like just completely bad for 8 years just to make the playoffs? And then once you make the playoffs and you have your franchise QB, you're still not good enough to win the Super Bowl. Is that a better fate than what we have now? Because that's the thing. Because I do think the Steelers are close. I think they're really close. They obviously need a quarterback, and that's the biggest chess piece. If they can find a quarterback, they'll be fine. Duh, right? That's every team. But I truly believe we're close. We need some more receivers. Um, Offensive line still need a little bit of work, but again, Troy Fautanu never played, so we'll see what that looks like next year when he comes back. Roman Wilson never played, so we'll see how a receiving core looks when he comes back. And then they need a couple pieces on defense, another corner, another piece on that defensive line. You know what I mean? Like, I think we're close. I think we're really, really close. I really believe if they can kill it in this offseason, which I think they can, I think this offseason you solidify everything else besides the quarterback. You bring back Justin Fields, see what he looks like next year. And again, if he doesn't look like the answer next year, trade everything you need in that 2026 class to move up and get a guy. I think we're close. I really do think we're like two off seasons away from being able to compete with the best of the best of the best. I really do. As opposed to a team like the Broncos, who had to suck for 8 years just to get back to this point. And now that they're back to this point, I don't think their ceiling is much higher because even though I like Bo Nix and I like Sean Payton and I like that team, I don't think they're ever going to be better than those upper echelon teams in the AFC, which means I don't think they're ever going to win a Super Bowl. Is that what you want? You know what I mean? So I don't know. There's people telling me blow it up, blow it up, blow it up. Like get rid of Tomlin, get rid of George Pickens, get rid of TJ Watt, get rid of Minka. That we should definitely not do. Because then you're asking to be the Giants, you're asking to be the Jets, you're asking to be the Browns. Like, yeah, like I just don't think that's I definitely don't think that's the case. You don't want to be a team in the bottom door. And I get it. We're in a terrible position where we're too good to be bad enough to just draft a quarterback, but we're not good enough to win a Super Bowl. So I get it. You want to be one or the other. You want to be either really good or really bad. I don't think blowing it up to be really bad is smart because, again, I do think we're close. And two, again, Broncos, Giants, Jets, Browns, Detroit before these last couple of years. Just because you're in the basement doesn't mean you're ever going to get out, right? We think like, yeah, oh yeah, 1 or 2 bad years, and then we'll be right back to where we need to be. You don't know that. You do not know that. You do not know that. You really don't. Um, so again, I just don't know if it's the right decision. And here's another thing I'll say too. A lot of Steeler fans are fantasizing about a Ben Johnson. They're fantasizing about, well, get rid of him, get a new modern quarterback because Mike Tomlin's stuck in his ways and he's old school and da 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 da. I kind of am scared of who they would hire. I don't think the Roonies would do it. The reason why I say that is look at what happened this year with Arthur Smith. They brought in these young offensive coordinators, these modern offenses. They interviewed those guys, and then they still went with Arthur Smith. I just think that's what they're comfortable in, right? I just think that's what they want to do. So my thing is, if they fire a Mike Tomlin, I think they're just going to bring in another version of Mike Tomlin. And it might be a worse version of Mike Tomlin. And again, the Steeler way is they're not going to fire that dude. Look at Matt Canada. Matt Canada was the first coach of any kind we ever just flat out fired, and that's because he was historically bad. What if the next guy we bring in is not historically bad? They're going to give him every opportunity to be successful. So what if he's just like slightly worse than Mike Tomlin, where we're still not winning playoff games, but we're still not terrible. So again, instead of 9-8, 10-7, we're 8-9, 7-10 every year. Is that what you want? I'd rather be where we are now and at least make the playoffs and give ourselves a chance. Because again, you might get luck of the draw against an opponent one year and win. Um, as opposed to not even being good enough to make the playoffs, but still being way too good to be in the bottom five. Because again, the Roonies will not fire that guy. That guy will be our coach for the next 10 years, and then you'll really be pissed off. So that's where I'm kind of like, is this? That's what kind of scares me with the be careful what you wish for. And I'll also say this too. A lot of people are like, well, Mike Tomlin wants to be ground and pound, da 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 da. I'm not necessarily sure I agree with that. When we had Big Ben and the Killer Bees, he was all in on the offense. He was all in on the offense. We were scoring points. We were one of the best offenses in the league. He was the guy for 2 years straight. Was like, yo, we're not even going to kick extra points. We're going to go for two every time. So I do think he's the type of coach that looks at his team and says, okay, what's the best way to win? And I do think over the last couple of years, he's looked at this team and says, because I don't have a quarterback I can trust, because I trust our defense more than I trust the guys that we have on offense. That's why I want to run the ball. That's why I want to control time and possession. That's why I don't want to turn the ball over. My point is, I think if we got a quarterback in there that he saw and said, yo, that's a dude, I do think he would be more open to opening up the playbook and scoring points. Because again, I'm just going off of what I've seen. When we didn't have a good defense and we had an offense, he let the offense be great. When we have a mediocre offense and a much better defense, that's when he got ultra conservative because in his mind, that was the best way to win. And again, he was technically right. That's what we haven't had a losing season. But obviously, when you get to the playoffs and you face these upper echelon teams, you can't win like that. And so that's where I kind of disagree. I feel like if you get him a quarterback and you get him a good offense, I think he will let the offense be more, you know, up tempo and scoring more points and doing what they got to do. Again, even the Bengals game this year, they opened it up. They opened it up. And I understand in the second Bengals game, he said, listen, I just didn't think I didn't want to bank on us scoring 44 points again, which I kind of understand that, right? It's like, hey, we haven't been playing that well on offense lately. I'm not banking on us having to score 40 plus points to beat these guys, especially in inclement weather. Like, I can't argue with that logic. Again, I still question some of the decisions he made in that game, but I can't argue with that logic of like, yo, this offense hasn't shown me that I can bank on scoring 44 points. We did it last time, and that's great. But with the season on the line, basically, I'm not banking on the scoring 40 points again and winning another shootout with these guys, especially since Russ has been turning the ball over a lot more lately and everything else. Um, again, I get it. I really do. I get it. Um, so yeah, that's where I kind of disagree. I'm kind of scared of what coach we would bring in if we got rid of Mike Tomlin and how that could be an even worse purgatory than what we have now. So are you saying we should keep him? Should is a strong word. I definitely not gonna say we should keep Coach T, but I wouldn't be surprised or mad if we did. Again, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm a Mike Tomlin fan. I think he's a great human being. I'm rooting for him. And I'm not gonna lie to you, as a black guy, as a black man, I see how some fans, not all fans, but I see how some fans talk about him, and it makes me root for him even harder because it's like, dude, please shut these, so you know what's up. Again, the fans that just want him gone, the fans that are pointing out some of the failures, the fans that are saying enough is enough, the fans that are saying the standard should not be just making the playoffs, the fans that are just saying it's time for change. I'm with you. It's the fans that are calling him a DEI hire, which I think is disrespectful because he wasn't. I will remind you, he's been way more successful than the guys that they were going to hire. The Rooney Rules took the Rooney Rule seriously because, of course, they did. It was named after them. And the Rooney Rule simply just states like, yo, open up your horizons and expand it to more than what you're comfortable with. And that includes minority coaches. For those of you who don't know, the reason why I'm a Steelers fan is because my dad's a Steelers fan. And the reason why my dad's a Steelers fan is because the Steelers and Pittsburgh in general, as a sports city, not as a city, but as a sports city, have always been very innovative in terms of inclusion, real inclusion. The Steelers got Mean Joe Green and others because they were the first team to like really explore HBCUs and getting the talent out of HBCUs. The Rooney's rule was made by the Rooneys before they ever hired a black coach, and they utilized it to their advantage to get a black coach because they had guys that they wanted. They wanted Ken Whisenhunt. I think Russ Grimm was the other guy that they really wanted. I think when Cowher retired, and they took the Rooney Rule seriously. Those are the guys that were going out. They were dead set on hiring one of those two guys. Mike Tomlin comes in, he blows them away in the interview, and they said, "Wait a minute, this might be our guy." And a Super Bowl later, we went to his second Super Bowl. We haven't had a losing season with him yet. I still think it was a good hire. Ken Whisenhunt did really well for the Cardinals. They beat the Steelers beat that Ken Whisenhunt led team in the Super Bowl, which I thought was so crazy. The guy that they wanted versus the guy that they got, and the guy that they got beat the guy that they wanted. But since that Super Bowl, Ken Whisenhunt had just a decent career. He coached a couple more seasons with the Cardinals. Then he went to Tennessee, and that didn't last long. And I think, I'm pretty sure the second guy was Russ Grimm. But whoever that second guy was, I don't think he ever even became a head coach in the league. So my point is, them going after Mike Tomlin was the right hire. Because you can't tell me that Ken Whisenhunt would have been done just as well because he's not in the league anymore. I'm just saying. Um, so the people that call him a DEI hire and things of that nature, I remember I was in the Steelers group years ago and they kicked me out, by the way. And someone said, I'm tired of Mike Tomlin and his thug-like mentality. And I said, I'm afraid to ask, but what does that mean? And she said, I think it's self-explanatory. I said, no, it's not. That's why I'm asking. What do you mean by thug-like mentality? Because nothing about Mike Tomlin screams thug to me. So what do you mean? If y'all don't know, he was gonna get hired by the Miami Dolphins back in '07. They called him too hip hop. You know what I mean? So when you see comments like that from the NFL and Steeler fans, I'm not gonna lie to you, it makes me want to root for this guy. Cause F you guys. You're like, oh, black people make it about race. No, you make it about race. And then when we call you out for it, it's like y'all make it about race. No, no, no. You do that. Again, if you're a Steeler fan that's just tired and just wants to change, fine. Fine, I'm okay with that. Equality works both ways, right? The whole point of equality is everybody gets a chance to get hired if they're qualified. But also, if you're not doing the job well enough, then you should be held to the same standards as everybody else. So again, Mike Tomlin, you have not won a playoff game in 8 years. If they move on from you, I cannot argue that, right? There's nothing to argue for you keeping your job. But for people to act like he didn't deserve it in the first place and he only did it to check off a box and all these other racial undertones, it's like, bro, go screw yourself. Seriously. So I root for Mike Tomlin. I'm not going to apologize for that. But again, I'm also fair. If they move on from him, I wouldn't be mad. If they keep him, I wouldn't be mad. Um, Again, I think we're close. And I don't put all the playoff failures on coach, so I wouldn't be mad if they keep him. Continue to bolster the roster, give him a QB finally, and then see what he can do from there. And also think that if a team gives you an offer you can't refuse, do it. Obviously, Tomlin would have to agree to it because of no trade clause. But again, if you get two first round picks plus other stuff, you have to really consider it. But you don't just fire him because that would be stupid. I would not just fire him, and I would not just blow it all up. There's no need for that. Don't overreact. Either trade him if you get an offer that you can't refuse, or bring him back and just figure this out. I'm also not mad that a lot of people are saying, well, keep him, but take some of his power away. I'm okay with that. Power over coordinators, power over draft picks. I'm okay with that. Again, that's fair. I'm a fair person. You don't win a playoff game in 8 years when you have a lot of autonomy over what goes on. It is fair for a team to say, hey, we will keep you, but we're stripping away some of that power. I'm fine with it. I'm truly fine with it. Um, yeah, I'm fine with that. But I don't, again, I just don't think we should just flat out fire him. I don't think we should blow it up. But again, if you can trade him and get some significant pieces back for him, you do it. You do it. Um, but yeah, that's the video, man. That's just my thoughts on it. Again, I'm very disappointed in the way this season ended. Again, I wasn't expecting a Super Bowl, but I wanted to at least end the drought. And we got to figure out, we're going to do this all over again next year. If you look at the schedule, obviously we don't have the actual schedule, but we know the opponents. I'm looking at the opponents and I'm like, yeah, I can see us winning 9, 10 games again next year. And so if we're back here next year with another first round exit, yeah, it's gonna be really bad. It's gonna be really bad. But hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully they can bolster the offense this year, plug some of the final missing pieces on the defense, and at least, like I said, win a playoff game and look like we're getting closer to winning a Super Bowl. But that's it. You can find me at Never for Brett Me. That's NEVA underscore the number 4 BRETT underscore ME on all the socials. We are the underscore dope blog on Instagram and Twitter. The dope blog all one word. I'm sorry. On Instagram and Threads, we're the dope blog all one word on Twitter. Our website is the dope.blog. And because you're watching this on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe and join us next time as we continue to discuss other people's excellence. Deuces.